Oh, f***ing time, you piece of shit.
Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
Guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as I trek through the treacherous technological wasteland that we've been dealing with for about the past 2 hours, if you can believe that. I'm joined with my tech engineer and best friend,
Alex, who is very angry.
Yeah. To give you a little bit of behind the scenes tea, we used to use another website to record the podcast each and every week, pretty much since COVID started. So if anything positive came out of the pandemic, it was that.
Yes, for at least 2.5 years, we used a different service. That wasn't perfect, but did everything we needed it to do. It had a routine. It worked fine. Most importantly, it was simple for everybody to use. Not the best audio quality in the world, but decent enough. And today we go to record, and they changed their terms of service, their entire website yesterday, and didn't email or tell anybody that they were going to do it. And they completely screwed over everybody that was using both their paid and lower tier services.
Yeah, like it's complicated to the point where I decided to browse on Twitter to see what was going on with this service, and I'm being intentionally vague as to avoid entanglements. And the person's like, "You're not helping. I don't care that you're the co-founder. Tell me to explain this in clear black and white. What's going on?" And they're like, "Can we take this to DMs?" No, you explain this crap in public.
When the co-founder fails and keeps reciting the company line and fails to explain what the changes are actually doing, and people are getting mad about it, and they're like, "Please take this to a private channel," that tells me that you have completely screwed the pooch and your company is failing.
Yeah, something happened. We are not happy, so
it's not an overly expensive piece of software to use. The problem is, even if we went to go pay for it, for a higher tier or for other services, they now are trying to take control. At least this is how it looks. It looks like they try to take control of your demographic information and ad revenue, and also want to watermark your stuff. And if you don't want it watermarked, you have to pay more. And even then, they're trying to make it so that they're the host of your podcast. That's not how you do it with all these people that have established, websites and products that we're using and contracts with people. And then you drop the change on a Saturday.
Yeah, like this is
not even a weekday.
Good. Yeah, like this is something not good at all.
And then trying to alternatives, everybody else either charges more, has less features, is less intuitive. And then we're like, okay, well, let's go back to Discord and recording using chatbots, which have now changed and sometimes don't work and have different commands. And this was a struggle all in itself. And the thing is, it's as much as this is an easy and use solution for us, it poses some issues if we're doing interviews with people that are less tech inclined, because this means they have to install a piece of software to talk to us.
Yeah, like I had some interviews lined up, and we actually had a guest scheduled to come in this week for another podcast. I mean, this person is relatively tech savvy, so I'd be almost certain they have this. But it was just like, okay, this is something we don't want to deal with. I'm annoyed.
The main reason we switched away from this, outside of there were some audio issues when the servers were under stress during the pandemic, really bad, where we were having delays and like syncing issues and stuff,
and robot voices,
and it would drop the calls sometimes. We moved away from it, but it wasn't just that. The reason we went with a service that had a single link that you could click that would pull you right in to talk using any device was because the main reason we were going to interview somebody who ended up dropping out because they were still so tech illiterate, and we won't say who they are, but it was an executive at a movie studio, and they were so inept at technology that even it was almost going to be a struggle to have them click a single link from an email without help from their assistant. But that was the closest we could get. They're like, can I just call you? And it's like, no, that's not how podcasts work unless you work at a radio station.
Yeah, and this is going to impact my ability as a journalist, because I sometimes record my interviews so I can have audio to transcribe from.
So it may be a situation where we do our regular recordings through Discord, and anybody who's more tech savvy, obviously, if we're interviewing somebody in the gaming realm, it's easy. But if we're doing interviews with somebody outside of that, or you're going to do that, you may have to go to do something like recording audio through Google Meetups or Google
Zoom or something.
Yeah, something where you don't have to have a cam on if you don't want, but it's something that they can easily click on just as a separate recording. So what it's doing is it's making us use multiple services that we wouldn't have had to have used before. So Alex not very happy.
Yeah, it has just been one of those days.
Even if we were going to throw money at you, and we were willing to throw money at you, we find out that your business is now seedy and I don't trust. So no.
Yeah, exactly. You do not get the credit card details. Do not pass go. Do not collect my $200. No.
Yeah. Especially when it's hey, well, $18 a month US. It's like, okay, that's really not bad to upgrade to a better tier service. It's really not. It's a reasonable amount considering we're a podcast that records so much. What I don't like is when you go to click on that and they say, by the way, that's only if you pay for a year up front.
Yeah. No.
Why would I pay for a year up front when you're changing your terms of service and canceling and changing plans without informing anybody?
Yeah, because
shady. then you have my money, and 3 months down the line you could completely screw over our terms of service and I won't get my money back.
Yeah, so we're not doing that. So moving on, as we often do at the beginning of the show, we often talk about our week, and you pretty much just heard about our last 2 hours. For me, this hasn't been a good week for me. You may have seen on social media, I've been posting I'm facing some health issues. I know, what else is new? But this actually came as a bit of a surprise. So as many of you know, I'm an amputee. I develop what's known as a pressure wound on my remaining foot, which means I'm putting all my weight down whenever I transfer to my wheelchair, to go to the bathroom, to get into my bed, wherever I need to sit. So we don't know how, but somehow my foot got wet and the blood blister got wet with it. And I'm just going to say gross is what happened. So I went to the doctors and they're like, yeah, you need to stay off your foot for weeks, if not months. It's going to take months to heal. You need to be really careful, kid, because if you get another infection, you could lose another leg. So far, so good. We've been healing. I have a doctor's appointment as of this podcast. I should be seeing somebody on Wednesday. I did go to urgent care last week. I'm on these gigantic horse pills for antibiotics, and believe me, I've actually taken stronger ones than these. So if I go out, I can go out for an hour at a time, or if I go anywhere else out, I have to have my leg elevated. So going to the remainder of the Guelph Storm games for the rest of the season and playoffs is going to be interesting, but I've already got things arranged with the team and the facility, so I should be okay. But it certainly sucks. I missed 2 major wins this weekend, and kind of bummed me out because the St. Patrick's Day game was absolutely astounding. It was one of the biggest crowd draws of the year. We won in shootout. But I did find out I bought my first piece of Storm merch, which went to an Alzheimer's. I think it was called Captain's Cause or something. And evidently I've gone down a shirt size. So that made me feel pretty good. If there was any silver lining in this week, I got a nice shirt. It supported a really nice cause. And according to my wife, I look pretty good in green. So that was my week. Alex, how about you?
I feel bad for you. Considerably better. Well, in that we hadn't been able to visit family and do like birthday celebrations. So my birthday, we weren't able to celebrate together because I was ill beforehand. Wasn't COVID, just the regular flu. And then we had really bad weather during the week of my birthday. And then we were supposed to meet for my mom's birthday, and she got COVID. And so we didn't do that. So we did a combined her birthday, my birthday, and my grandmother's birthday, which is later on next week. We did it all together, with the family together for the first time since Christmas, just at the end of the week. And that was good because the weather cleared up just enough for us to all get together. And then the weather went to crap again. So that was honestly pretty much it outside of, I did a whole bunch of catching up on stuff. You probably, if you're listening, you saw that we had a bunch of, we had a first Turtle Treasure episode come out of the year with stuff that had been sort of lingering. We just didn't know where to place the review. So that came out. We recorded the regular show. I have got the next 16 weeks of Earth versus Soup episodes scheduled, ready to go. I've actually got the next 16 episodes of that partially prepped, and I have to edit them over the next little bit. The idea is within the next week or so, I might have about 60 weeks worth of Earth versus Soup ready to go. So over a year.
Oh, wow. That's astounding.
Yeah. This next 16 episode batch I'm preparing are going to be the summer months where we do 2 a week when we take our break. So, I think July and August we'll probably have 2 Earth versus Soup episodes a week because we're currently on, I think, episode 129. I think it's what just got released, or that's just getting released. And I was just sent episode, as of this recording, I think 206 of the raw audio from Aaron and Darlene. So that tells you how much I got to go through.
Wow.
Yeah, so like there's stuff like they just recorded a discussion on one of the movies that I just did a review on as part of the Mill Creek package this past week, which is interesting because I was like, oh, it's not going to come out till like summer of 2024. But it's an evergreen thing because it's a classic horror film, horror/sci-fi. So it's kind of funny. It's like, oh wow, I've heard this review and you guys won't hear it for a year.
So a little bit of a peek behind the Twig curtain.
Yeah, like because they're podcasting machines when it comes to, I'll get sent 2 or 3 a week, right? So that, and then I've got some other stuff prepped. We've got in the next 3 weeks or so of Future Imperfect, and I think a couple. We got the prototype just came out, but we've got a couple other loose cannons. We got the romance one, which was the February one, which is coming out now. Everything got shifted a bit.
Yeah, it's been a little crazy around here, but I've been working on some reviews in the background. You're going to hear a bunch of Transformers reviews I got from Hasbro. I got some RPG stuff I'm going to be reviewing from Modifius. I have some board games from Gale Force 9, and I might be reviewing some stuff in independently just because I think it's neat. So you might hear some stuff on the Transformers deck building game because I'm going to be actually going to my first convention in a couple of weeks called GriffCon here in Guelph, but I'll talk about that more as the date approaches. So we got a lot of stuff to cover in this show. All of the reviews this week you're going to be hearing from Alex. He's got some stuff that's fairly timely, so be looking forward to that. We got stuff to talk about the entertainment world, the weird stuff that happened around the planet this week, a whole lot of stuff. But we're going to take a break here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. We're going to go to Alex's first review, and we'll be back with the nerd news right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I've been Mike the Birdman. He's been Alex the producer. We'll be back, guys, right after this.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
For the last week or so, I have been checking out Justice League Cosmic Chaos. That is the new action-adventure video game from our friends over at Outright Games. It's actually developed by a studio called the PHL Collective. And if you're wondering what this is, because it might have slipped a little under your radar, it is a action, I guess action sort of somewhat platformer top-down view. It's hard to describe except without saying it's very much like the Lego games, just not with the when you beat up things they break up into a million pieces of Lego. But if you know that sort of gameplay style, it's like a mixture of the Lego games, like the Marvel Ultimate Alliance / was the Justice League version, very similar to that sort of RPG / action beat 'em up kind of game. And in this, I'm going to probably butcher the name because I've heard it a million times in the game, but it's still hard for me to read and say. You play as the Justice League, specifically Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, with help from other superhero characters, fighting against Mr. Mixispic, whatever. It's that crazy fifth dimensional traveler sort of trickster character. And what has happened is you're in the town called Happy Harbor in Rhode Island, and he brings back Starro, and Starro ends up causing chaos. All the enemies you fight are sort of like Aquaman enemy sort of things, like they're fish people based. And you have to recover the other Justice League members from under Starro's control while slowly taking on different parts of the town to solve missions, get items, and recover individual sections. So it will tell you what levels you should be at for certain areas. And then, if you go into a high-level area, it's way hard to beat, or you can, get basically wiped out. If you go to a low-level area, it's too low, you won't get as much experience, sort of thing. And it's all done from an isometric top-down view, almost like a little more zoomed in, but almost like Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2, before they went to GTA 3 style, if that sort of look. So it's got sort of elements of many different games that were popular, and they do find a pretty good blend for everything. I'm playing it, and I have been playing it on the Nintendo Switch, but it's also available on Windows PC, Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5. I will say this, the Switch version is overall pretty good. Frame rate wise, it does dip the first time that you load it. I noticed the first couple videos at the very beginning were rather choppy, and I was worried that was going to affect the rest of the game. But it was only the opening video. And I think the very first time you get to control one of the characters, it was a little choppy. Every time after that seemed to be pretty straightforward and have no frame issues or anything. I can't say whether it's playing at 30 or 60 because of the art style that it's in, but it was pretty solid. And if it's solid on the Switch, it's going to be solid on every other platform as well. I'll say this, graphically, it's nothing to write home about. It does exactly what it needs to do by portraying a really neat cartoony style. A lot of the elements pop in and load in as they should. It doesn't seem jarring in any way, and it evokes the feel of a Saturday morning cartoon / cell shaded RPG. So it's honestly a solid effort. Musically, it's pretty good. Decent stereo separation. one of the biggest elements in this that is one of the best things is the voice acting. Every character is voice acted. There is tons of dialogue throughout the game. Everybody's voice acted. It's done very, very well. Let me see, Nolan North, Diedrich Bader, and Vanessa Marshall are reprising their roles as Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman from previous different DC properties, shows, games, movies, all that sort of stuff. There's even like incidental voices for, random townspeople, and it's pretty darn solid overall. There's a lot of hours of gameplay you can get out of this. A great thing is there is a, difficulty settings you can set. There's like 5 or 6 different levels from the start. And if you put it down to the easiest, let's say you're playing with little kids, because you can, it's a game that kids can play with their families and no problem, it scales all the way up to, I'm an adult in my mid-30s and I'm having a great time with it. But if you are having somebody who just wants to experience the story and the overworld, if you set it to the lowest difficulty, it actually makes you invincible. Like, enemies can hit you, you can fall, and they won't do any damage to you. So you could like run into a really difficult area by accident and not get wiped out. And you still get experience, and you still get to find all the little secrets and find items that you can upgrade your characters with, without having any fear of dying. Basically, it becomes impossible to lose, which can be good if you got like a 3 or 4-year-old that just wants to play, and they might get frustrated. And we're not talking like the frustrated where it's kids like, oh, you just need to get a little better. Like, sometimes as a little kid, you can get really frustrated and you just want to play the game. So I like that they have that option. It's not like a code you have to unlock or anything. If you just set it to the lowest difficulty, you can do that. If you set it to, a normal difficulty, it's got a standard difficulty curve. It's nothing that's going to be, you're going to scream at, because as you get to an area where maybe it's a little too difficult for you, the enemies will have like a red indication above them saying they're too difficult, and here's the level they're at. You might be level 5 and they're level 20, and it's like, okay, don't go there. So you never are put in a situation where you feel like this was unfair. And you can also change the difficulty on the fly at any time. So it will give you a message when it's loading, and that's the only other downside I can see to this, other than some of the like stuttering that happened at the beginning, is there's a lot of load screens for the Nintendo Switch, and we're talking 5, 10, 15 seconds every time you open a door, go to a new area. That is something that it's not a problem with the game. At this point, we know it's a problem with the Switch platform, because the Switch platform, it's showing its age. It's a 7-year-old hardware using 8-year-old technology in it. And it's not just that, it's the speed of what we've become accustomed to on PC and then on current gen consoles. Like on even last gen consoles like the PS4 and Xbox One, you could load data at about 110 megabytes per second from a hard drive. On the Switch, you're limited to like 30 or 40 megabyte reads. So it's only at the best maybe 50% the speed to load assets in that was on the PS4. And then if you're looking at PS5 and Xbox Series, comparing it to Switch, they're literally 10 to 20 times faster. So I don't know what the loading situation is like on PS5 and Series. But it would have to be a lot better, because it takes a lot of my time was taken up with loading screens, and I was getting like annoyed personally. But if you're still used to playing a lot of games on the Switch, you should be fine that way. And one thing that helps mitigate it is each loading screen, there's like a cycle of I think 6 or 7 different random loading screens that can pop up, and each one will have the characters making jokes or even making fun of the loading. Hey, it's a lot of loading screens, but what you're going to do? Or that sort of stuff. Or they'll make a pun joke about loading. Or it'll even say something like, yeah, I bet you don't like seeing all these loading screens, but if these weren't here, you'd be floating through the air and might glitch through the world. Like, it'd even make like in jokes for the developers. And I was like, okay, that's a nice way to mitigate it. It just is something you will notice. But once you've loaded into, a level, like once you're inside a building or level, or you're outside in the overworld, there's no loading once that happens. It's just, you're finding a lot of areas where it's like, oh, here's a little secret door that goes to a little dungeon underground. And it's like, for roughly my level, it's off the beaten path, but I can do this. When you click to go in, you expect to see a 10 to 15 second loading screen. And then, you're like, oh, it turns out I'm not supposed to be here yet. I got to leave. Well, there's another 10 to 15 second loading screen. So for a game with the graphics that it has and the assets that it has, I'm surprised it needs to load that much data, but I'm also not surprised because of the Switch. So again, if you're playing it on a different platform, you might have a very different experience. If you're playing it on the Switch, expect regular Switch loading that you've come to expect from every single Switch game. But it is one of the best, family-friendly action-adventure with RPG elements games that I've seen in a very long time. It's literally like, what if you took the great Lego games of the past and then applied a fun and pretty decent RPG leveling element with really good voice acting to it. Highly recommend. One of the best licensed games I've played in a very long time, and I think it's going to go under the radar of a lot of people, but you shouldn't sleep on this one. If you've got anybody that's a big DC fan in the household, or even just for yourself, it's something that kids can play, something that adults can play, and I think everybody's going to get, a pretty good experience out of it.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek
News.
Welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm Mike the Birdman. He's Alex the producer. Well, let's talk about some of the stories that happened around the weird, wide world, this planet we call Earth. Some things happened, some things good, some things bad. But this story, as reported by IGN.com, is Willow has been canceled after one season on Disney+. The critically acclaimed reboot ends after just 8 episodes. Despite strong critical reception, Willow is not getting a second season on Disney+. Reported by Deadline, this live-action sequel series to the Ron Howard's 1988 fantasy movie has been canceled following its 8-episode first season. The Willow series took place decades after the movie, featuring the return of star Warwick Davis in the titular role. We called the show amazing in our review, saying, quote, expertly balancing accessibility for new viewers and continuing the story that 80s babies love with stunning cinematography, charming performances, and vibrant storytelling. This feels like Disney Plus at its best. The cancellation comes 1 month after Disney Plus saw its first quarterly subscriber loss. Disney Plus subscriber growth has been lagging well behind its competitor Netflix, with the streamer recently joining pretty much every other major streaming service by inducing a price hike later on this year. While Willow is no longer in Lucasfilm's playbook for Disney Plus, the studio is working on a handful of Star Wars projects for the platform. Disney Plus's upcoming Star Wars slate is packed with live-action series, including the currently airing 3rd season of The Mandalorian, Andor, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, The Acolyte, and more. There's even more on the animation front with The Bad Batch, Visions, and Young Jedi Adventures. I didn't watch this show. I was curious.
To be honest, I don't give a shit. I've never seen Willow. I don't care about it. It doesn't interest me.
The the movie I actually thought was kind of cool, and I think now, Alex, since you and I have played so much D&D together over the years, it's better. It's one of the better sword and sorcery movies, and the fact that it got a fairly high budget follow up, that's kind of cool. I'm kind of surprised I didn't invest into it.
I used to think this was the same movie as Legend. Like, I didn't know the difference between them at all. The Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
And it's like, I still haven't seen either of them. It's just, for whatever reason, I love, swords and sorcery. Neither of them ever seem to pull me in. So,
it's weird.
I'll watch it, but again, this was out this long, and did you know anybody that sat down to watch this show?
I did. My sister Shannon watched it with her and her boyfriend Sam when it first came out. I'm a member of the Disney Rewards program, and they were pushing the Willow payoff poster, and I guess they're blowing them out now for so many points. I was interested because they brought back Warwick Davis. I liked the original movie. Val Kilmer was in it. It was actually one of the first movies I remember seeing that was sword and sorcery that looked legitimately cool. This is what I thought D&D was supposed to kind of look like. There were some funny moments in it. The first movie has got some tremendously charming moments in it. There are these little people, they're like pixies or something, which is kind of neat. There were some really good special effects in it. It's cool. I mean, honestly, I really enjoyed it, but when you look at the movies that came out of the sword and sorcery era of the 1980s, you had Legend, you had Dragon Slayer, you had Cull, and then, you know, some of the lesser B movies like
Conan.
Skull. Yeah, Conan, stuff like that. So Willow does have its place in the pantheon of entertaining fantasy movies. The fact that it took so many years to get a Disney Plus series, okay, I didn't see that one coming when it was announced, but I just got so busy over the holidays, I just didn't bother. And now that I know it's only 8 episodes, it's not getting a second season, providing they didn't, you know, end on some dramatic ass cliffhanger or something, sure, maybe I'll give it a watch, but it did drop pretty low. I don't know. I mean, it sucks for those of you people who really enjoyed this show, but I don't know, man. The fact that Disney Plus is losing subscribers, because they also canceled the Mighty Ducks series a couple of weeks ago, because mostly due to Emilio Estevez not being involved. The viewer numbers were kind of small, and if it's losing subscribers, and Disney has some amazing shows, like Andor is supposedly fantastic. I've only seen the first episode,
and I haven't been interested to watch that, but everybody says it's the best one. But again, I didn't like the advertising for it. I don't know. I'm watching Mando. I'm having a good time, but it's becoming apparent that they've become the network or the streaming service that has one show every 3 months. They don't have, there's nothing to make you watch more than one night a week.
Yeah, it's true. Like, I mean, I remember last year when they had the big glut of shows. You could watch Miss Marvel, you could watch Moon Knight, you could watch Loki, What If, and all these other shows.
There was a little overlap, but for anything that is Star Wars or Marvel, they've now made it so that
once a quarter, basically.
Yeah, and it's not pulling people in. Like, you can't have a network survive off of one half-hour or 40-minute show once a week, every week of the year. That's not worth $10 a month.
Yeah,
or a price hike on. Like, HBO is different because HBO always has like 3 or 4 different shows of different types of shows airing at the same time. And you could say that, oh, Disney has that. No, Disney has one show people are wanting to watch, and then usually stuff that's like, I guess
it's
I'll
water
watch.
cooler stuff.
Yeah. Whereas like Paramount has been pretty good lately, where they not only do they have the Star Trek stuff if you're in the States, but they've got usually 2 to 3 shows that they're pulling in, at least starting now. It's their plan is to pull in that many. Peacock has like nothing, and they're basically stagnant too. But then you look at somebody like Apple. When Apple puts shows out, they usually have 2 to 3 that are launching at the exact same time. So and it's on different days of the week. So they have enough to come in at least 2 to 3 days a week to watch. And that's the same as Netflix and Amazon will do that. There's almost always 2 to 3 bigger, in quotes, shows. But Disney has become very clear that even though they're spending a lot of money on these shows, they're only doing like 6 or 8 episodes, and then you're having these gaps of like a few weeks between shows, and it's like they're going to lose subscribers if you've only got 20 episodes or 50 episodes a year of all of their shows combined to watch.
Yeah, like you're starving for content. You need stuff that can be produced at least semi regularly that draws people in. I mean, could you survive on Star Wars? Yes and no, but the thing is, it needs to be more consistent, because as much as people love Mando, unless you really are into the animation stuff, which some people are and some people aren't, you're not going to draw in the casual viewer for water cooler talk on Monday morning at the office. You're not going to generate the headlines you want in Entertainment Weekly, IGN. You're not going to get the headlines that you want and need to maintain topical kind of news kind of worthiness. And
their big trouble is they're not leaning into the Fox library like they should be. They own Fox. All the shows that are on the Fox end are being put on Hulu. So they're cannibalizing their own viewers. And a lot of those Hulu ones, they end up here on a few different things. Like, what's weird is the Hulu produced shows are ending up on Disney Plus Canada as part of that Stars program on there. like
Mhm.
not stars with a Z, like stars. They call it STARS, like actual stars. That's where. Remember when they did that expansion where they put that here? But
Yeah.
it's not a ton. It's not all of their shows going on there. But the problem in the States is where their bread and butter is. I don't think they've got a single property that they bought from Fox that's actually getting produced and put on Disney Plus. And that's like 50% of their library.
Yeah, like it's very strange. Like I would like to be a fly on the wall for some of these conversations that are sort of happening at Disney, just to kind of like, guys, what are you doing?
Well, like you can't run a TV network with one show a week. Even cable, like a cable channel like AMC got away with it for a while with The Walking Dead, but they always had one or two other shows.
Well, yeah, because like they would have must-see appointment TV on Sunday night. You get The Walking Dead. They try to put in some kind of a show that would lead in either before or just after Walking Dead. Then you'd get Talking Dead with Chris Hardwick, and then you'd get Kevin Smith's Comic Book Men, and they try to make the new It show would follow Walking Dead to some lesser or more successful degrees of success. Disney, when you space things out so widely, you're going to get amazing numbers at Christmas time. You're going to get amazing numbers during March break. You're going to get amazing numbers during the summer. What do you do between May to July? What do you do from November to December 25th? Like, the gaps are too big. And Mando, when you really think about it, the last time we saw him was 2021 because we had the book of Boba Fett, or was that last? Either way, it's been too long.
That show sucked too. So the only episodes people liked were the 2 episodes that were dedicated at the end. Basically, they were Mando episodes, and that was clear that they did a hard left turn shift. Even the filming looked different. It was like in the middle of production, they went, "This show is bad. We need to fix this," and they switched over to making the last few episodes about Mando.
Yeah, like I also wonder how they're going to handle like stuff like some of the Marvel properties, because now it's becoming.
They haven't announced the release dates for them, and half of them are done production.
But I'm surprised we haven't seen a true Loki season 2 trailer yet, considering we're in the wake of Quantumania, and that came out in February. That should be coming to the service within the next month or so.
And they're saying sometime in the summer now.
That's a bit of a gap.
And they have Secret Wars coming, again, sometime in the spring. You have 3 shows listed for the year, and not just Marvel, like 3 shows that people might want to watch, and you have nothing dated for after Mando ends.
Yeah, like we don't know what's going to happen with The Alkalite. We don't know what's happening with Star Wars Visions. I know that's more of the anime end, but there's just not a lot of dates.
Half of the other stuff was either Marvel stuff was pushed to next year, or and the Star Wars stuff, half of them were either canceled, put on hold, or we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mess over at Disney Plus. I mean, hopefully we'll see some good stuff come out of that, but I'm sorry I don't have better news for you if you're a fan of Willow. So we're going to move on to our next story today. And this story comes courtesy of Kotaku.com. No one's getting laid in Starfield, apparently. Bethesda's spacefaring Xbox exclusive RPG does have lots of drug use, though. So Starfield, Bethesda's game studio Skyrim, but in space RPG, has a firm September 6th release date. We'll see. A June 11th presentation will give us a closer look at the same that has at a game that has over 1,000 planets, but something you might not have expected to learn before now is just how sexless Starfield will be. And by sexless, I mean truly sexless, because the game has none whatsoever. Announced at E3 2018, Starfield is easily Bethesda's most anticipated game to date since its first new IP the developer has dropped in decades, and despite a delay or two, this spacefaring RPG will also mark Bethesda's first major new game release following the somewhat disastrous release of Fallout 76 in 2018. Wow, it's been a long time. In short, a lot is riding on Starfield to be a smash hit in the similar vein as the Elder Scrolls Skyrim, which won't ever die. Still, details on the minutia of the game, how long it is, what the narrative is about, what we're even doing, those kind of things remain scarce at the moment. However, thanks to a new age rating published by the Australian Classification Board, we now know that Starfield has been assigned the restrictive 18 plus for a few reasons. Drugs aplenty, but zero coitus, reads the subheadline.
So if you were thinking this is a Mass Effect game, it is not.
It is not.
But also, who would want to have sex with those cold, dead cow eyes we saw in the trailer? And I went back and watched the trailers for it. How did they release it? Did they not see that every single character that they showed in the trailer was cross-eyed?
It looks like a Fallout 4 mod with some better textures on it.
Whatever they've done for like the eye tracking on it, every single character is cross-eyed. And it's like, what? Like, and I thought like, oh, it's got to be like a trick, maybe the lighting was hitting it. I went frame by frame. They're all cross-eyed. How did they not see that? Or if they did, like, how did they deem that was okay?
So Starfield will reportedly feature, quote, high impact and, quote, interactive drug use that constitutes the 18 plus rating. The ACB's chart, which was published on March 15th, notes other classifications as well, including moderate impacts for language and themes, strong impacts for violence, and very mild impacts for nudity. However, the ACB specified there's no impact for sex. So no one fucks in Starfield but everyone commits crimes and gets high. Yep, sounds like space. While it sucks for Starfield to force involuntary celibacy investors, Bethesda isn't known for putting overt intercourse into its games. In most instances, the studio has been coy about the act of sex and only ever implying it in the Fallout games with an obligatory fade to black as characters lie like plants next to each other in bed. Similarly,
could you imagine with
Google, shut up. Sorry, that's my Google alarm.
It's all good. With how incredibly bad Bethesda is at programming character movements without it being janky. Could you imagine? They go to have a sensual sex scene, and then they just randomly flail their arms in all different directions and start wiggling around, and it's like a wiggly arm, wavy arm man advertisement. But there was two people going. Oh! They're like, it looks like they're seizing out.
There was a viral TikTok video, or it was like a Facebook Live video or something. Someone made a live version of Bethesda death animations, like in Skyrim, when you die from an arrow or a projectile, or if you kill an NPC and it goes in for the kill screen slow effect, it looks ridiculous as they do this like Olympic style blay thing. It looks weird. And yeah, like now some of the modding scene could put stuff like this in. Yeah, sure. Cause when Starfield hits PC, the modders are going to hit it hard. And at least Bethesda's good for that. They open up their games enough where they invite community creation content, because Fallout 4 has a very strong modding community. Skyrim has so many mods, it's not even recognizable. And it's astounding. Starfield, if it comes out on September 6th, I will be surprised. And the only reason I say that, because this is their big holiday game. My guess is if it does get pushed, it'll be in November to coincide with the release of the Xbox anniversary bullshit that always seems to happen. I'm skeptical. I do want to play Starfield, but I am not paying for it. I'm sure I'll get a review copy from Microsoft. Well, I don't know about after this conversation.
I will be on my deathbed and still saying what's wrong with their eyes, because I've never seen a game look that bad when it comes to character eyes.
To me, I think we said this on the podcast, Alex. Do you remember when we were? I think you were sitting beside me here at the house, and I was like, "Dude, that's a Fallout 4 plasma rifle." Or something like that. I'm like, this doesn't look right. This looks like Fallout 4. Why?
What you said was it looks like they reskinned Fallout 76 and then tried to sell it as a new game.
Yeah, like it looks weird.
And guess what? That's what they did. That's the same engine.
I mean, like Fallout 76, to its credit, has gotten considerably better over the years. Not enough for me to go back and play it, but I'm also not going to pay for a private server. No. And I know there's single player content now and you can do all this other shit. I don't care enough to go back. I'd rather play Fallout 4 again and mod the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
Starfield, I'm curious. You've got my attention, but I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of other games this year that have my attention as well. So,
Exactly.
like, honestly, I'll give it a whirl. We're going to need to do some kind of a thing on it because it is one of the most anticipated games in a while. But this year is going to be weird come end of the year game award time. We've had there's going to be some controversial picks come toward the end of the year. The game that shall not be named. We're going to talk about Resident Evil 4.
What's going to happen at the end of the year when it comes to Game of the Year stuff, Resident Evil 4 is probably going to be there, but I actually know, I don't think it can be. I don't think remakes are able to qualify. We'll have to double check. It might be in some people's books, but where it's really going to come down to is Zelda and Final Fantasy fighting it out. I
think Zelda's probably going to end up taking it, but I think there's going to be some weird dark horses that we don't see coming out of nowhere.
It all depends. I'm a little worried about Zelda. We have not seen gameplay. We've seen cuts of cinematic looking parts of gameplay. We've not seen the interface. We've not seen any of the game systems. And we're getting awfully close. And they haven't shown anything.
Yeah, like I'm a little worried, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. So moving on to our final story this week, and this story just popped up on Twitter. I think his name was Steve, shared it with me on Twitter. He's like, "Oh my God, Birdman, you got to check this out." And he was right. So this story comes courtesy of Nintendo Everything, but has been reported by multiple outlets right now. Beat 'em up game Toxic Avengers announced for the Nintendo Switch. Retroware has announced Toxic Crusaders, a new beat 'em up for the Switch. The project is expected to wrap up development later this year. Here's an overview of the game with additional details. When the evil Dr. Killamoff attacks, only one team of hideously deformed creatures of superhuman size and strength stand between him and his plans for global pollution, the Toxic Crusaders. Earth's last, greatest, and ugliest hope for survival. The hottest heroes of 1991 return for a radical, radioactive beat-em-up for a new era, featuring action, crushing combos, and more toxic waste than you'll know what to do with. Choose from playable heroes, including Toxie, No Zone, Junkyard, Major Disaster, and Headbanger, who would technically count as two characters if they could agree on something. Plus, for the first time, Toxie's musically gifted girlfriend, Yvonne, and the mother of all mothers, Miss Junko, Toxie's mom. Battle across 7 disgusting levels rendered in beautiful full-color pixel art as you defend Tromaville from hordes of radiation rangers, mutated thugs, and zombie chickens. The odds might be stacked against you, but with awesome powers, a winning personality, and up to 4-player local co-op on your side, the Smugulian Empire's days are numbered. Take a deep breath and dive into this action-packed, pun-filled adventure that drags you kicking and screaming through the wonderful world of Troma. Enjoy cameos from gore-filled classics such as Class of Nukem High, Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead, and Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, reimagined in the Saturday morning cartoon style that made the franchise so unforgettable.
So what that means is we're not going to see from Poultrygeist when the guy has the mops shoved through his butt and comes out the front of him, and it becomes his new penis, basically.
Yeah. Now, some of the key features, this actually just grabbed my attention.
Because they are kidifying it. You know what we're going to get? It's probably going to be the Colonel when he turns into, like, the giant chicken. It'll be that, like, the zombified chicken that way, and you might get Uncle Lloyd showing up as the older Arby. That sort of stuff.
I'm hoping he becomes, like, a playable character or something. So according to the key features, some of these I just noticed now. The triumphant return of the Toxic Crusaders just when we need the most. Pulse-pounding beat-em-up action for up to 4 players. Gorgeous full-color pixel art graphics. A stunning soundtrack that'll make you party like it's 1991. Amazing comic book cutscenes featuring the voices of Team 4-Star, aka Dragon Ball Z Abridged. 7 playable characters, each with their own unique moves and powers. 7 unique stages that take you from the streets of Tromaville to Plant Smugulia and beyond. Surprise cameos, each more surprising than the last, from across the Troma cinematic universe. This looks awesome.
It'll be Kabuki Man. I'm trying to think anything else. They didn't really have a lot of other breakout characters. Like there's like they'll have deep cuts and stuff, but like you're not going to see things from Troma. Like, remember, Troma released a lot of movies they didn't own, right?
I think you'll have a level where you fight surf Nazis. I would almost guarantee it.
That's not owned by them.
Oh, they don't own Surf Nazis Must Die?
You're only going to see movies they produced.
Ah.
So, like, Troma's War didn't have any, famous characters, but Toxie had the most, obviously. But what you might have show up is you could have cameos from actors and stuff that were in things like in Terror Firma, that you might get like a James Gunn showing up in the background somewhere.
Oh yeah, and there'll be something weird like that for sure.
And you might get something from the South Park guys, because Troma gave them their start by releasing Cannibal the Musical for them. So there might be stuff like that. Don't forget, Sam Jackson and other people's got their starts in their movies. Yeah. So and we'll see.
The game is already priced at $25. That's a day one buy for me. Honestly, I will be going for a press copy for this as soon as I can. The
company making it is I think they purchased the name from Retroware TV back in but it's the people. It's a new name, but using the logo of Retroware from the people that made the AVGN game.
Yeah, and those guys are fantastic devs. I mean, we've seen really good kind of beat 'em ups. I mean, we saw the revival of Scott Pilgrim versus the World a little while ago. We saw the awesome TMNT reshelled. We saw like these pixel type games can be really well done.
And not even pixel, just like HD 2D art. You can probably trace all of this, and not to the some people might go, oh, well, what about when they did Battletoads again? That was okay. No, it's the Streets of Rage game. When the Streets of Rage game came out, and they built a brand new engine that they might be licensing out to people. I want to see more people do that. But this looks great. I'm not it's funny. I'm a huge Troma fan. I loved all the stuff, but my introduction to Troma was the cartoon. Obviously, as a little kid, didn't know that Toxic Avenger was a very vulgar movie series, right? Like I my parents, when I got good grades in school, would buy me the toys that year.
Yeah, I remember getting a bunch of them for Christmas one year.
I got them for Christmas, my birthday. I think I got good grades when I was finishing kindergarten or grade 1, because remember, I was the perfect age. I was 5 years old when the show came out. So I was watching it. I watched the cartoon. Do you remember that they had Burger King meals? That were themed that way here. I don't know if that was in the States. I would assume it was too if it was in Canada. So I had Burger King toys that were Toxic, Crusaders. And then I didn't know Toxic Avenger existed until I was in high school. And when I saw it, I was like, what in the... Wait, this was turned into a kid's show? And then you think of like RoboCop and everything else that was. So, I mean, I played the NES game. It was not good. It was okay. It was hard. This looks really, really good.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get the classic Toxic Crusaders theme song. I'm going to imagine so.
They have in the trailer, they have the song, but it's done like the Shredder's Revenge, where they've
updated it.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's still going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to this.
Please. Hopefully, this means that if they make some money, that the royalty money will go to Troma, and they can finally get some more movies produced on their end. Because I know everything's been on hold while they wait for the Toxic Avenger Hollywood movie to come out. Mm-hmm. But Uncle Lloyd's not getting any younger. Please,
yeah, please do this. This is going to be great. I'm looking forward to it in so many ways. So we're going to take another break here on This Week in Geek. We're going to throw things over. Oh, sorry.
It's throwing to you with one of your reviews that I have saved.
Okay, so it'll be one of my reviews that'll be up on the drive. So you'll hear from me in this next segment. And when we come back, we'll talk about the things that happened around the planet this past week that may be strange, unusual, just a little bit off. We'll talk about that in our next segment. I've been Mike the Birdman. He's Alex the producer. We'll be back right after this.
Soundwave, jam that transmission!
Rumble frenzy, ravage, rat-bat, eject, operation interference.
First we crack the shell, then we crack the nuts inside!
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here, and I'm once again taking a look at a really cool Transformer we got sent over from our friends over at Hasbro. I'm talking about the Transformer Studio Series 86 Core Class Rumble Blue. Okay, so this is yet another one of Soundwave's cassette minions, and I was always a big fan of this guy from the G1 cartoon. Obviously, as you kind of heard during the intro there, first we cracked the nut, then we cracked the nuts inside. Big fan of this. So obviously Rumble transforms into the cassette, which would fit inside Soundwave's chest. And this is the smallest core class figure we have to date. The only figure I've got to compare him against in my collection is I have the 86 core class Wheelie, which I got for Christmas. And yeah, he's a little bit smaller than that. And he's obviously smaller than Spike in his exosuit. And one of the questions you're going to be asking, does he fit inside Soundwave? So I have the Netflix Soundwave, and I also have Kingdom Blaster. He does fit in Soundwave, though getting him to eject is a little finicky, but he does fit. So don't worry, you're not going to bust anything. In Blaster, he seems to work a little bit better, so that's kind of cool. One of the things I really like about this looks so accurate to the cartoon. I mean, he's got that bright, vibrant purple. He's got the red visor for his eyes. The paint apps are seriously really, really spot on. And he comes with multiple accessories. He's got his two guns that fit on his back, and he's got the twin pile drivers. Now, the pile drivers don't move, but still, it looks cool. He will pose really, really, really neat with the other cassettes that are currently available. I think I've got Laserbeak. I'm almost positive. I think he's posing on my Soundwave's arm, if I remember correctly. I've got a display, but it's across the room right now. I mean, honestly, I am really hoping we see Frenzy sooner as opposed to later, but I'm also hoping we see a retooled Ravage, which would be really cool to get him in proper, like, 86 core class kind of design. It would be really neat to see Ratbat, who is one of my favorite Decepticons, despite not really getting a real chance to shine in either the show or any other bits of continuity outside of maybe the IDW comics. I think he got a little bit to shine in there. He was like a senator or like a propagandist or something. But yeah, seriously, Transformers Studio Series 86 Core Class Rumble, this is something you should absolutely pick up. If you have the Netflix Soundwave, he's going to fit in there. If you have Blaster, maybe he's infiltrated the Autobots, or maybe he's defected. That's cool too. And, you know, the fact that he can take those pile drivers and he can pose with them, he fits really cool in his cassette mode. He looks great. I mean, this is one of those figures that you pick up because you know he's going to go well with somebody else. And when the Studio Series continues to finish out the rest of the cassettes, maybe we'll get Steeljaw and Ramhorn. I think we already have Eject and Rewind, if I recall correctly. So tons of cassettes yet to come, and I'm really excited to see what happens in the Studio 6 80 series line. I know there's been some product leaks recently that look incredible, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Hasbro does with this. But seriously, if you can find this guy, pick him up. You will not be disappointed.
Soundwave superior, Decepticons inferior.
Who are you calling inferior? Nobody would follow an uncharismatic boar like you!
Hey, nobody calls Soundwave uncharismatic. Yeah, let's kick tailgate. Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
Welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman. He's Alex, the producer. All right, guys, well, it's time to dress up as strangely as we can and put on our tinfoil hats. Time to talk about the weird news that happened around the planet this past week in this particular slice of dimension. And well, the first story comes courtesy of BlogTO, but I have seen this reported a few other places, even locally, actually. Toronto ranked as one of the worst cities to survive a zombie apocalypse, but there is a local angle to this as well. With shows like The Walking Dead and HBO's recent smash hit The Last of Us, you might be wondering how long you'd survive in a post-apocalyptic world. According to one study, if you live in Toronto, odds are you won't manage to survive too long before you fall victim to the war between the living and the undead. Rentola.ca conducted a study in order to determine which cities in Canada are the safest in the event of a zombie apocalypse. Cities are judged on five categories of data, namely vulnerability, hideouts, supplies, safety, and mobility. Indicators for vulnerability include population density, perceived physical and mental health, while hideout scores are based on the average household size and housing vacancy rate. The safety category was judged on a city's crime rate, total firearms, total weapons violations, while mobility was based on walking, jogging, and roads. Out of 35 Canadian cities, Toronto placed 29th with an index score of 4.66 out of 10. Toronto fared better than rival Montreal, who placed third, but trailed behind cities like Guelph, Calgary, and Winnipeg. Toronto also received the lowest score in the vulnerability category out of all other cities included on the list, with a devastating score of 1. Toronto's highest total was in the hideouts category, which was an 8.5. According to Rentola.ca, the worst cities to survive a zombie apocalypse is St. John's, New Brunswick. Here are the top 10 safest cities in Canada in the event of a zombie apocalypse: Edmonton, Alberta; Saskatoon, Saskatchewan; Guelph, Ontario; Calgary, Alberta; Regina, Saskatchewan; Winnipeg, Manitoba; Kelowna, BC; Greater Sudbury, Ontario; Kingston, Ontario; and Abbotsford, BC. If you're not lucky enough to live in one of the safest cities in the event of a global zombie apocalypse, perhaps it's time to reconsider locating, or at least at the very least, scoping out a new city for the best possible hiding place. Kitchener placed in the top 25.
And I can tell you why. For us, it's not that we're very congested. We're actually spread out fairly far. We only have 2 interchanges to the highway. It's hard to get out of the city.
But I was actually thinking why Guelph is so...
There's 4. I think there's 4 interchanges for Guelph.
And we also don't have a very dense population when you really think about it. We've got a lot of suburbs.
A lot of old stone buildings. A lot of that... You're also the first planned city in Canada. Like literally, like before they built the city, they went, here's the grid for the whole city. So that was the first time that had ever been done. So it's a lot more straightforward how the roads are. So basically you can get out, get in easy. You can barricade the entrances a lot easier than you can. Kitchener and Waterloo is built like a spoke wheel. It's very Mennonite/Roman style. Toronto is built like a British grid, but it's not planned. Only the suburbs were, so it's all condensed. Where you guys are was also a military fort. That it was built as a military town, so you have the infrastructure to survive.
I was actually now one of the fun thought experiments, because everybody does this. Everybody looks at their zombie plan, and do I have one? Yes. Do I have a bug out bag? I used to. I don't anymore. But looking at Guelph, I'm looking at supplies. Not bad. The problem is, can you get to them before you are overrun? Where I am, I'm very close to a major retailer that guaranteed would get swarmed first. However, I do have quite a number of parks around me, and I'm mostly in the burbs. I'm also fairly close enough to the exit of the city. As Alex mentioned, there are multiple ways out. If I needed to get to the country, it's not too far away. Whereas you were mentioning with like Kitchener and Waterloo.
Yeah, Kitchener only has what they call 2 interchanges, where 2 ways to get to the main highways. And then there's a small town of the old highways that connect you and us. Like one Victoria Road turns into Woodlawn, I guess.
Yeah.
It's eventually basically the old road that used to connect the cities is only like a 2-lane road, though, like 2 lanes on either side. And to get to a highway now, the 401 does have at our area like 7 lanes on each side at the widest areas. The problem is you've got 500,000 people with 2 main ways to get there. Like there are other ways out of the city, but what happens is they all funnel to those 2 ways.
Yeah. So
whereas I think there's 4 for Guelph.
Yeah,
which is a lot considering you've only got 150,000 people.
Yeah, and if you had to get out of the downtown, you could reasonably put up defenses if you really wanted to. And like I'm thinking, like a lot of my zombie knowledge, and again, fictional scenario, comes from the Max Brooks Zombie Survival Handbook, but also disaster preparedness, living next door to a very wise survivalist and military veteran. I've learned a lot that I probably shouldn't. I'm fucking ready.
Well, your city is just in general there's less. Here's a big thing. There's less graveyards. Like there's more graveyards. There's more dead people to rise up where I live.
Yeah. Well, also when you think about one zombie thing that I remember reading from the Zombie Survival Handbook, a graveyard might not be a bad place to hide out.
Once
and
they all leave.
Well, yeah, because let's presume it spreads like, and I'm going to use some terms here, Alex. I may have to explain some of these for you. So let's say they are Romero type zombies where one person's bit, the infection spreads, very much Walking Dead.
What one-to-one easily contained.
Exactly. Whereas let's say if they're Return of the Living Dead, where they are literal corpses coming up from the ground, maybe not a good place to hide out. So it vastly depends on what type of zombies you're dealing with.
Basically, you don't want zombies where they become zombified based on gas being spread through the air.
Yeah.
It's the pandemic thing, right? It's a lot easier to contain a disease that requires touch, physical person-to-person fluid contact versus, hey, I breathed in something bad. It's the whole reason why the Last of Us on the TV show switched from it being
spores,
airborne spores, because in reality, if they're trying to make it as real as possible, it's so depressing. The world would end, completely, like literally, you could not stop it. So unless you lived in like literally Alaska, Northwest Territories, Siberia, and Antarctica, and maybe that's the southern tip of Argentina, nobody would ever live. Like we'd just be dead forever. Yeah. So that's why they had to switch it to something that would be a little more hopeful. So I don't know if I ever want to see airborne contagion movies and stuff ever again because it's too close to reality.
I was about to say, yeah, we've had a couple of years of living under some frankly strange conditions and not exactly optimal ideal conditions when you view everybody and how they responded to COVID. And there was I saw this quote on Twitter about a year ago, and someone had said, the same people who act strange about COVID are the same people who would hide a zombie bite. So let that percolate a couple minutes with you. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad to live in one of the safest cities. In fact, our mayor, Cam Guthrie, was on Twitter saying, well, in all my years in office, I've accomplished one of the coolest things ever. And I got to hand it to you, Cam. That was actually kind of neat. And although I did say this, I would love to know if there's a council meeting the week of Halloween. I would love for them to spend 5 minutes and putting together a quote unquote official zombie protocol for the city of Guelph. Even if it's just for lols and it takes 5 minutes of city council time, that would be kind of a fun story.
Have some university co-op intern kid put together, a little sign that they put up in front of City Hall, where they give out candy or something. And it just says, come here and get your your zombie cure candy, something, or something. Do something fun that way, or for April Fools.
Yeah,
put up a sign.
I would love to see the city council say when Guelph, because I know we have a zombie walk that happens. I'm gonna say, that's not allowed. We're safer than that. I think that'd be kind of funny. So yeah, that's fantastic. I might survive. Not likely. Let's be real here.
If you survive as far as the chair's battery lasts, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I'm effectively fucked if that happens.
We'd have to put you on the back of a flatbed truck with a 50 cal, and that's basically it. Just sit there. You won't have to worry about the recoil because we'll bungee cord you in.
Dude, I'm down. All right. So our last story this week, just because we do have other obligations this week, comes courtesy of toronto.ctvnews.ca. Woman shocked when she sees a lion walking her dog in Ontario. A woman who visited Ontario last week said she was walking her dog at night when she came face to face with a lion through a chain link fence. Encounter.
Yes, we should clarify. This was not a woman seeing a lion walking a dog with a leash. Yeah. This was a woman walking her dog with a leash who saw a lion.
Yes.
Considerably differently weird.
An Encounter Animal Advocates pin on the lack of exotic animal legislation governing roadside zoos in the province. At first, Quebec woman Patricia Lapierre thought she saw a big dog in a fenced-in yard, but as she strolled by with her speckled dog in the dark, she started to see the animal a lot more clearly. I saw a lion in the yard about 30 feet from the road, she told CTV News Toronto. By the way, this is in Jungle Cat World in Clarington, Ontario.
Which we've never heard of, and it's probably safer not to go there.
I've seen it pop up on Facebook Marketplace, but I don't know where it is.
Because there is like a big cat, like rescue. Was it Bowmanville Zoo has them?
Something like that.
I think Bowmanville, and then when they like graduate from there, they go to the other bigger zoos. But like, we don't trust like sideshow zoos here. It's usually not a big thing to go to here.
Oh yeah, like once I
like when I heard that story, when I saw it, I thought, did somebody escape from the African lion safari?
Oh boy, it gets weirder. Allow me to continue. Her dog Abby began barking as the two animals bolted parallel to one another, separated by a snowbank and a fence, as seen in a video she posted on social media on March 8th. La Petite, I can't pronounce it, later learned she had stumbled upon Jungle Cat World, what animal rights experts call a roadside zoo located in Clarington, Ontario, about 100 kilometers east of downtown Toronto. Lions, tigers, jaguars, hyenas, and leopards live at the Wildlife Center, which has been open since 1983, according to its website. The park offers a quote, safari getaway where visitors can fall asleep to the roar of the lions and the howling of the wolves at the on-bed and breakfast. The lion enclosure...
I would not be sleeping there.
Oh, it gets worse, if you can believe that. The lion's enclosure is perched next to Concession Road, across the street from a gas station and a local restaurant. And down the street are residential houses. CTV News Toronto visited the area on Monday and could see the lion in its enclosure from the road. Her video, I'm just going to say that, which has over 3,000 shares on Facebook, more than 5,000 likes on TikTok, has sparked a lively conversation circling the question as to why is a lion living along a public road within walking distance from local businesses and residential households. Quote, is that even legal? I never knew you could possess any type of exotic animal like that with all the houses around it, one person commented on Facebook.
You're not supposed to be. I don't think you're supposed to be. Like, you have to be usually an accredited zoo, and not to mention... Is nobody questioning the fact that this lion is out in the cold when it's not supposed to be in that kind of weather?
The article continues to say, another person pointed, not sure, but I think the fence is not really useful. It's still a feline that jumps really well. On Monday, Animal Welfare Services said they inspected Jungle Cat World in response to a complaint regarding the lion. Solicitor General spokesperson Brent Ross told CTV News Toronto at the time of inspection, all the lions were in their enclosures and there was, quote, no threat to public safety. But from the point of view of Michelle Hammers, a World Animal Protection's wildlife campaign manager, the lion's enclosure is, quote, completely inadequate. Lions can jump as high as 12 feet, which is why professional zoo standards recommend keeping lions behind fences at least 15. Beyond height, Hammer said the fence should have an overlapping top to prevent the animal from climbing out. Jungle Cat World did not respond to CTV Toronto's repeated request for comment on the Quebec woman's encounter and the lion enclosure. This is the second time in 3 years the World Animal Protection has raised concerns about Jungle Cat World. In 2019, the wildlife park made headlines for offering a close-up photo opportunities with tiger cubs, wolves, and other wild animals. Less than a decade earlier, a 2.5 wolf named Shadow escaped from a double fence enclosure at Jungle Cat World and was fatally shot by a local resident. In a complaint report penned by World Animal Protection Services submitted to the provincial World... It just goes on like this. The group claimed the facility was not in adherence to numerous provisions in the Ontario Regulation of 444/19 Standards of Care and Administrative Requirements. One of the issues flagged was the alleged, quote, poor design and construction of enclosures, which could lead to escapes and inappropriate interaction with people, according to the complaint. Quote, it is a very strong reminder of how broken Ontario's animal legislation is, Hammer said in reference to the situation with the lion. Ontario is the last jurisdiction in Canada that has not regulated the ownership of exotic animals. Instead, each municipality is responsible for outlining their own rules. Quote, we are calling on the government of Ontario to get serious about taking control of this issue instead of downloading the responsibility onto the municipalities, and for the proper authorities to investigate thoroughly. Because, Doug Ford's going to be right on top of this.
Well...
my God, this is so frustrating.
What tells you something about this is such a niche and nothing business. I don't even know how they operate. It's probably some weird illegal shit. I mean, again, don't quote me, don't sue me. Just
listen.
I have lived here my entire life, and when my family's from the Toronto area, we've never heard of that place.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can't be a successful business if we've never heard of it. Like African Lion Safari is a literally world famous, retreat thing here where you go there and they do like tours through there where you can either take your own vehicle or rent a vehicle, go through, and it's like basically a simulated safari visit, right? Mm-hmm. And that's been operating for 40 years or more at least. That is a world famous place. So I knew that existed. I knew the Bowmanville Zoo had had lions there. Those are the ones that showed up where I got to pet the baby cub and everything when they came to my school to talk about, wildlife preservation and all that. That's like a legit zoo. So is the Toronto Zoo. Never heard of this fucking Tiger King bullshit. Like, this sounds like it's run by a bunch of rejects.
Yeah, like there's something, just the fact that you're having something so dangerous close to a residential area. I mean, it's a chain link fence. And
and it's not even the regulation height.
Yeah, like this animal could jump it, and lions aren't exactly tiny boys. This thing could charge right through it. This has disaster.
What is it doing outside in minus 20 degree weather?
Yeah, I mean, that's not something like this. I don't like this. I mean,
African lion,
a fox, I get.
African Lion Safari doesn't operate in the winter. They have them in indoor enclosures for that purpose. Yeah. You don't. There's a reason why there's people still arguing that maybe even the Toronto Zoo and that, like, it's a lot of money to keep them warm, and that it's like it's inhumane to have the kind of zoos sometimes in the kind of climates we have. Now, the argument is to be made that there is a part of it is if they're like a research facility or they're using it as a conservation or helping. I do think that there's
value in that.
There is value in having a zoo like the Toronto Zoo.
Yeah.
But again, I also do see people's points when they're like, hey, is it really a good idea to have a giraffe in minus 20 degree weather when it's minus 20 degrees at this level and they're like 25 feet tall? And
yeah.
Can you imagine the wind chill on them in the winter?
Well,
so I do get it, but at the same time, it's like those are professional zoos.
Yeah,
with millions of dollars of endowment. What the hell is this sideshow freak thing doing?
Yeah, like I've got some serious concerns for these animals, and if it's the municipality, I can assure you, the municipality where Clarington is, I hope they're seriously doing something about this. I hope there's a meeting at council. I hope there's a meeting with the county saying, hey, look, guys, we are one step away, in my opinion. If something happens, the first question that's going to be asked, other than, oh my God, how did this happen? Who is responsible?
Well, or on top of that, they're probably more afraid of who's going to pay to remove them.
And the fact that there's nothing on the books at the provincial level.
And again, you're in your 40s. I'm in my 30s. How did we never hear of this place?
Yeah, like I never knew this place existed. Now, there is a part of me that's like, that'd be kind of neat to get my picture taken with, a cub. But at the same time, those are wild animals. They're not supposed to be interacting with the public on that level.
Yeah.
Now, Alice, I don't know whether they did this when you were a kid, but I remember they did bring a lion, or it was a cub or a tiger, to my elementary school when I was a child. I remember that day, but the rule was you couldn't touch them.
Oh, they did that in my high school when the Bowmanville Zoo came. and they brought the lion cub. The lion cub was the size of a Great Dane, and they brought it up front. I was in the front row, and it just leaned up against me, started licking my knee, purring, and fell asleep on me. And it weighed like 150 pounds. And I'm like, can I pet it? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. But like the whole reason was that was during the training process where they get them when they're born. Socialized with humans. But they're not meant to be like scrunch their face up for a selfie. It's like they get them accustomed to not being nervous around people. And not being nervous like not like, oh, I feel good, I can eat you, but like not to freak out.
Yeah, because it's different. And the fact that this animal's beside a residential road, like, I'm just going to spitball some ideas. What if there was some kind of an accident? What if there's too many unknowns, and I don't like that. Whereas African lion safari, it is way the hell back from the road. You have to drive in a long time in the private property.
You have to sign a waiver if you want to use your own vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells you something.
And it's a bed and breakfast too.
And I've never been to African lion. I always wanted to go. We just never did. But like, there's that, and like, these are professional. Like, I ain't never seen a commercial on TV for this thing, but I've seen like hundreds and thousands of commercials over the years for African lion safari. And what's the other one? The one that, yes, which has had controversy in itself.
Yeah.
For Marineland and then obviously the Toronto Zoo. Like, those are the three ones for Ontario where you see most of the ads for the wildlife stuff. And even then, again, they're not without their own controversies. So, danger, Will Robinson, danger. That's all I got to say.
So that's going to do it for this edition of The Weird News on ThisWeekInGeek.net. We've covered zombies and lions. Two things you definitely don't want to fuck with. So we are going to take another break here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. We're going to have one final review from Alex. And when we come back, we'll talk about how the hell we're going to figure out this whole recording situation, how it doesn't affect you, and how you consume our content. We'll be back, guys, right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
Our friends over at Paramount Home Entertainment sent a review copy of Babylon in 4K Ultra HD in a Steelbook for review. And this is the film that came out. You probably saw a little bit of advertising for it in the lead up, maybe in the late summer, early fall. And then it came out right around Christmas time, and you didn't hear anything about it after that. And I'll start out by saying, I think there might be studies done on how incredibly bad the advertising media rollout was for this. The reason I didn't see anything was because I'm not really big on TikTok, and it appears, after doing a little bit of research, that a lot of the marketing money was spent to try to get Gen Z to go watch this, which is weird because it's not the kind of movie that is particularly interesting to the youngest generation right now. They're not really into like period epics of that ilk. They might be more into things like Bridgerton and that, like looking at like the stuff from like the Renaissance era up into like the Victorian era. But Babylon is strictly a like love letter to the extravagance of the silent film era when they were making the transition into talkie pictures. And I saw some of the advertisements made for it, and it doesn't really represent the actual movie. So there's going to be studies done on whatever was done when they like hired the marketing houses to make the ads for it. Because had this been marketed as almost like a Coen Brothers or like a Scorsese style period epic, I think it would have done a lot better theatrically. Because I know this was like one of the biggest bombs of that year. That does not denote bad movie, though. That, in this case, denotes mostly really bad marketing at a really bad time to release it. Because I ended up watching this, and I'll tell you right now, I'm a little torn. I kept watching it, and there were parts of this where I was like, I don't like this movie. And like for a lot of it, I'm like, I don't like this. And then I'm like, wait a minute, is it that I don't like it, or is it that something feels off? But I kept watching because I was like, this is odd. It's like, it's very well made, like very, very well shot. The costumes are extravagant. The actors are fantastic. And I'm like, and even the plot, I'm like, okay, the script is decent. Something feels wrong. And I ended up watching it twice. And this is a 3-hour movie. And I watched it twice and went, I think this is okay. I think this is a good, like, and then I, ended up looking up other reviews from people, contemporaries that had watched it theatrically. And I went, oh, so that's the general consensus. It's like, on Rotten Tomatoes and that, where it gets like, half the critics like it and half the critics don't. This is going to be a very subjective movie that I get the merits of it. And it's funny because I like edgy, out there, strange films, or ones that go that extra mile to be provocative. But without spoiling any major plot points or things that happen throughout, the movie starts out with a big party happening, a big extravagant, pre-depression party in Hollywood, way out in the middle of nowhere. And one of the first things you see, not the very first scene, but one of the first things you see is a man sort of dressed like a baby and a woman doing sexual favors for him, and then giving him a golden shower, just peeing all over him. And I'm like, is that what we're going to be in for in this? But the tone of it just seems so off kilter and strange. Like it was trying to be funny, but then at parts where it was trying to be funny, it just wasn't. This is going to be one of those movies where you end up watching it and it ends up getting like a big cult following later on. If I had to guess, something in a similar vein to Showgirls, but it's a lot better made film than Showgirls. So a lot happens in this movie. So I'm not going to summarize everything. Just know that the actors and actresses gave it their all. It is well worth watching. I'll say this. If you're a big fan of that era of Hollywood and you want to see something that's like a slice of life, or something that's sort of a dramatization of that transitional era, because this starts before the golden age of Hollywood, back when it was basically the Wild West, and you could be super rich but then disappear overnight, and people would get murdered and die of drug overdoses and things, when things were just almost lawless out there. And then it transitions, and by the time the movie is over, you're like steeped in the classic golden era of Hollywood, when that is starting to transition. It's just at the cusp, within about 10 years after this is when it would start to transition out of the golden era. So it's actually pretty interesting that way. As far as visuals are concerned, it's one of the best looking films of the year, if not the last few years. Cinematography, the sets, the costuming, the lighting, it looks fantastic in 4K with the tone mapping. And this also includes the Blu-ray of it, and I popped that in just to see. And even with regular Blu-ray, without the extra detail that you get with 4K or the HDR, it still looks great. It also comes with a digital code you can redeem. Now, it's rated 14A in Canada, and I was really surprised it didn't get an 18A from some of the stuff in this. It doesn't appear to be like extreme enough to get an R or hard R in Canada, but it's a hard R in the States. Like, it's some of the stuff in this, it would borderline questioning whether or not it should get an NC-17. It just doesn't have that extra that would push it over into that realm. But for like, the 14A is basically PG-13, in Canada. And I think a lot of families would be very surprised to see what content is in here. If you're bringing your 13-year-old to see this. So keep that in mind. It's like, it says it's for sexually suggestive themes. A girl is giving a guy a golden shower and you see her peeing on him in the very first 5 minutes of the movie. That's not suggestive. That's pretty graphic and a pretty, fetishized thing to happen in a PG-13 movie. So, I mean, I guess we're getting a little more open with that sort of thing in Canada, but just be aware, if you're one of our American listeners, that it's probably a hard R rating in the States. Now, outside of that, special features. There's no special features on the 4K disc. The Blu-ray disc just has the feature film as well, and then there's a third disc that is a Blu-ray with all the special features, and it has I think about 40-ish minutes or so of extra scenes. Like there's behind the scenes stuff showing the making of the movie, especially on the costuming and how they made the score. There's some deleted and extended scenes. I'll be honest, they may be worth watching once. Like the deleted and extended scenes, they were cut for reasons like the pacing would have been off. It's already a 3-hour movie. There's going to be a ton of moments in this that are going to end up on like YouTube memes and TikTok and that, like little snippets you can take out. So it's going to be something that I think people revisit in the future. If you're a big fan of any of the actors involved, it's Brad Pitt, it's Margot Robbie, and a whole slew of other actors and faces that you'll know, you'll probably want to pick it up. This is, at least as of this recording, the definitive version you're going to get if you want to get the Steelbook with the 4K and Blu-ray and digital code and all that. If you're on the fence, I still think it's worth a rental. So find, a digital VOD of it. And if you like that, then it is a pretty solid set to pick up. Just, know this going into it, that even though it says 14A on the back, it is more on the leaning edge towards an 18A or so, in my personal opinion. And I'm somebody who, I love R-rated movies. Just know that I was actually surprised after reading the rating and then watching the content. But it's still, a mesmerizing experience is what I can say. And it's definitely worth watching at least once.
Those magnificent bastards. Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that's the kind of show it has been here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. We've certainly talked about a lot of interesting things today, from Star Wars to Willow to zombies and Guelph and why you shouldn't have a lion in your frigging backyard. It's been a show. So hopefully we will get this whole recording problem figured out in the next couple of weeks or days or sure. I'm sure it shouldn't slow down our content too much, but just bear with us while we figure out why y'all suck.
Or affect our recordings, hopefully.
Yeah, like ultimately, we just want to be able to podcast. This is a hobby that we take very, very, very seriously. And we like to, we like to make people happy. It's fun to hear from you people. It's fun to take a look at some of the cool movies, toys, and video games we get. We just want the process to work.
And we're not made of money. We are a couple disabled people who do a hobbyist podcast that has a decent reach.
Yeah.
We're willing to pay a reasonable price for a reasonable service and just not get shafted in the bum.
Yeah, exactly. We just want it to work. We're not asking for the moon.
Wait. We want it to work and be reasonable.
Exactly.
Because you can throw money at things and make them work. But if you're throwing money that needs to go to, I don't know, bills and groceries, then it becomes a problem. If you're throwing a $20 bill at something, and that's fine. The problem is, it looks like, since the podcasting realm has exploded in the last year especially, these companies are now going, hey, for $20, let's give you 50% of what we used to give you for free.
Yeah. And as a very famous sitcom sketch show once said, homie, don't play that. Yeah, that too. I'm quite sure at some point. But yeah, homie, don't play that. So we will figure this out. I'm quite sure. Regardless, we should have more Earth versus Soups. We got Future Imperfect. Alex said the anime romance thing is scheduled. We were supposed to have a guest on the show this week for Pre-Hysteria. I have to go to the doctor's that day, so hopefully Birdman doesn't lose another fucking leg. But so far, so good.
We might be pushing that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, depending on how Wednesday goes, which I'm fairly optimistic so far, knock on wood, so to speak. I think I'll be fine, but I got to follow a certain amount of things, and you'll see tomorrow, Alex, when I see you. So anyway, guys, I hope you had a fantastic March break.
Watch me no sell it, or watch me just go, ew.
So yeah, hopefully you guys have had a fantastic week. You had a fantastic March break. You had a safe and fun St. Patrick's Day. hopefully you remembered where you woke up and who you woke up next to. So anyway, until next time, for ThisWeekInGeek.net, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike the Birdman saying, be excellent to each other and get what you paid for. We'll catch you guys again next time right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.